Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and to my journey in beauty. Today's video, I am going to review for you the Sephora Favorites box called Sunkissed Glow. This box does retail for $40, but it's said to have a $100 value. When I saw this release on Sephora's website, I was very excited. If you guys don't know by now, I'll tell you one more time that I love the Sephora Favorites kits. So let's go ahead and get into the products. We'll start with how I went through the products during the testing period. Each week I picked one bronzer and one highlighter, and I wore those all week. And then of course the fourth week all I had was a highlighter because there are only 3 bronzers in here. So the first week I went ahead and paired the Tarte Park Avenue Princess bronzer with the Laura Mercier Matte Radiance Baked Powder in the shade 01 Highlight. So let's start with the bronzer. This is the Park Avenue Princess bronzer. If I had to compare this to something, I would compare this to the Hourglass Ambient Lighting bronzers. Again, it is a shimmery bronzer, which I have grown to love for the summer. I'm going without foundation like I am today quite a bit, especially for the summer when I just want a nice healthy glow to my skin. This absolutely was my favorite bronzer in this box, followed very closely by the second one, however, but I really enjoyed using this for the week that I did. This is a very smooth powder. I did use the same brush for all of these bronzers in terms of application. This was a brush that we got from BoxyCharm. It's a Crown Pro. I believe they call it a powder brush, but I really like this in general for applying bronzer, which is why I used it. I like this tapered shape to it because it fits nicely against the cheekbones and what have you. So I did use this brush for all of them, and it worked really nicely to apply this. This is a nice bronzer in that what I prefer in a bronzer is for it to be buildable, and this absolutely is. Having a buildable bronzer makes it the most versatile bronzer that you can have, because you can use this bronzer in the winter when you're very pale and just go very lightly on the skin, or you can absolutely go in and build it up without it looking powdery or dirty or muddy or anything like that. This was my favorite out of the 3 bronzers that I tested in this box. It does say that it is a waterproof bronzer. I did not test that. If you would like me to maybe test that on my Instagram, let me know. I did not have my kids hose me down or anything while I was wearing this bronzer. However, I will say that it lasted through any sweating or sparkling that might have happened while testing this bronzer. So overall, I thought the staying power was really nice on this one. Now, the same week that I was testing the Park Avenue Princess bronzer, I was also testing the Laura Mercier Matte Radiance Powder, Matte Radiance Bake Powder in the shade 01 Highlight. And this is what it looks like. It's a nice vanilla shade. With this powder highlighter, I did go ahead and use my favorite brush for highlighting. This is a foundation brush, but I've always used it for highlighting, and that's what I did use with this one as well. However, I will say this, while it is a gorgeous highlight, it applies nicely. It doesn't accentuate any texture on my skin, which I do have. This does have a lot of kick up in the pan, so I felt like I really made like a dent in this through the week that I was using it every single day. But it's a beautiful shade, but it is a nice subtle highlighter as well. It reminds me a lot of the Essence Pure Nude highlighter, although this one is definitely a wee bit darker. This reminds me of it because of the natural glow that it sort of gives your skin. I think you could absolutely put this all over your face if you wanted to, just like the Hourglass Ambient Lighting powders. But I think really the thing that I find most unique about this product is that it could be used all over the face, just like I use the Essence Pure Nude highlighter, as well as targeted in certain areas to highlight the face. So I do highly recommend this one. If I was going to recommend that anybody buy a full-size product out of the ones in this box, this Laura Mercier one would be it. It's one of the first few products that I've tried from Laura Mercier, but I was absolutely impressed. So let's go ahead and get into week 2. For week 2, I did test the Becca Sunlit Bronzer in the shade Capri Coast and the Milk Highlight Stick in the shade Lit. Again, we'll talk about the bronzer first. This is a bronzer that I've always wanted to try. This is a mini. Everything in here is a mini except for one, and I will definitely address that. This is a beautiful shade. It's definitely a ride or die of many of my favorite YouTubers. This is the one that I was talking about. I feel like this is more of a satin bronzer than a shimmery bronzer, and I really like it for that. It's kind of a nice in-between. It's not completely matte, but it's not super shimmery. It just looks like fresh, healthy skin. And what I would compare this to in terms of formula and not scent, because this is not scented from Becca, I would absolutely compare the two of these. I think you could skip this altogether if you have the butter bronzer. Now, of course, I really wanted to try this, so I'm not mad about it, but I really and honestly, truly think that you can skip Capri Coast if you have the Physicians Formula butter bronzer. I have the shade Sunkissed bronzer, just so you know, for reference, but they are exactly the same in my opinion in formula. They're smooth, they're buttery, but it is a satin finish, not a shimmery finish or a matte finish, and that's the thing I like the most about this. So I'm excited to continue using it. I really, really like this. I felt like the lasting power on this, or the staying power on this, was just as good as the Park Avenue Princess and just as good as the Physicians Formula. I feel like Physicians Formula butter bronzer really is lasting on the skin. And then the same week that I went ahead and tested the Becca bronzer, I also was testing the Milk Makeup highlighter stick in the shade Lit. This is a nice champagne-y, but more to the gold side of champagne highlighter. The thing I like about this was the texture of it. It doesn't dry down so quickly that you can't work with it, which is exactly what you want in a cream product. I felt like this was able to be very subtle with just one little stripe. Tap, tap, tap it out. I definitely preferred applying this with, you know, the stick, obviously, but then to blend it out with my fingertips, I felt like that was the best way to work with this one. It reminds me a lot, if you're looking for a cheaper version, Ulta Face Sculpting Color Stick in the shade Highlight, both in shade, but also in tone, but also in the consistency. However, I do prefer the Milk Makeup one a little bit more because of the blendability factor. I feel like the Ulta one dries down so quickly that my only option is to go in with a stippling brush and really kind of blend it out. For week 3, I was testing out the Hoola Bronzer by Benefit as well as the Hourglass Vanish Stick in the shade Champagne Flash. Little tiny baby sample, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about the Hoola Bronzer. I did get this Hoola Bronzer obviously in this palette, so I went ahead and sent the mini Hoola that came in this kit to a friend so she could try it out. But I do like the Hoola Bronzer. I think this is a really nice bronzer. It's definitely a all matte bronzer. I don't mind a matte bronzer, especially during the winter. I would prefer a matte bronzer that I can go in very lightly with. Again, this was applied with the same brush from Crown all week. And I like it. It's buildable. It doesn't have too much of an orange or yellow undertone. It's just a really nice bronzer color, as well as a versatile bronzer because it can be, you know, applied very lightly or built up. So I really do like the Hoola Bronzer. However, I didn't feel like I needed 2 of them. So I went ahead and sent on the sample size to a friend to try out. What, if anything, would I compare this to? Probably any other decent matte bronzer. I have the number 7 Match Made bronzer in the shade Caramel, and to me these are very similar. So if let me put them side by side so you can see here. I think these are very similar, so if you wanted a cheaper option than the Hoola bronzer, which I believe is $30 when you buy the box type, this number 7 bronzer I believe runs around $15, so about half the price. And I'll tell you what, one thing about the number 7 that's better than the Hoola bronzer, this has no kick up in the pan, so you're not wasting any product. It's definitely not a deal breaker for me if there's kick up in the pan, but I've been panning this since January, using it ever so faithfully, and I still have not hit pan on it. Whereas this one does have quite a bit of kick up in the pan when you just lightly tap your brush in there. And you know, again, not a deal breaker for me, but you are going to go through your product quicker that way. So when making a comparison, you make the decision. The highlighter for week 3 was Hourglass Vanish Stick Highlighter in the shade Champagne Flash. This is this is very tiny. I knew it was going to be small, but I didn't know necessarily it was going to be this small. It's like a mini lipstick size, but it is a nice shade. It's a very similar shade to the one that we got from Milk Makeup, and it's a nice shade. It's a good shade for a lot of people, which is probably why they chose to put this one in there. This does not feel greasy on the skin at all. I do prefer to blend this one out again with my fingers, though I did try it with a stippling brush. This applies really smooth, it blends very easily, and it does last all day. The formula is just nicer. I'm not quite for sure how to explain it to you other than it just feels nicer. And then for week 4, I went ahead and used the Tarte Park Avenue Princess again for the entire week because it was my favorite, and we only had 3 bronzers. But along with that, I went ahead and used the 4th highlighter, or tested it out, and this is the Ciate London Dewy Sticks in the shade Glow. And this is the full-size product in this box. Unfortunately, this is the product that I like the least. This is what it looks like. It's kind of an iridescent white formula stick, and you're going to see that the highlight part of this is very, very weak. It does have an iridescent sheen, but most of the sheen that you're getting with this product comes from the fact that it is very, very greasy consistency. This is just exactly like putting a nice lip balm on your face. And because I already have combo oily skin, it's really, really not ideal for my skin type. I'm wondering if someone with dry skin, if this might settle down or absorb into the skin a little bit more than someone like me who already has oily skin. I'm going to look into it and see if this is considered lip safe, because I would use it as a lip balm. It does have a nice sheen to it. Was just definitely a major disappointment in this box, especially considering this was the full-size product. I've never before tried a stick highlighter or any kind of stick product that was this greasy, and I just can't imagine that a lot of people would want to put this on their face, so I felt a little let down by that. However, again, this box is $40 and it has a $100 value. So if one out of the 7 products that you're receiving in the box is not your favorite, or you maybe have to give it to a friend that it might work with, I don't think that that's all that bad. For me, partially what I'm paying for is the experience and the ability to try out a bunch of products without a huge financial commitment, as well as a huge commitment to taking up space in my collection, which I like to keep smaller and more reasonable, just so that I can truly enjoy the products I do have. I hope that's all clear as mud and that you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know if you would like to see more reviews like this in the future. I do love these Sephora favorite boxes. I think they're a fantastic value. and I do highly recommend them. I would like to try one of the lip ones in the future. And have you tried any of these bronzers or highlighters? And if so, which one was your favorite? I hope all of your makeup days are beautiful makeup days, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!
I'm gonna go ahead and have a smooth.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and to my Journey in Beauty.